a young boy comes across an unusual thought. He believed that a girl's lap would be warmer than the one resting on top of him. With a knife in her hand, Fayumura almost strikes the poor guy directly, but he manages to escape in time. As she chases him through every corner of the room, the girl calls her victim by his full name, Kazushide Sanda. That gives the feeling that things are really serious, and it only becomes clearer as that strange girl approaches with a psycho stare. Sanda, of course, has no idea why this crazy girl is acting this way, since they had been fine earlier. That is, they had arrived earlier in the room, as was expected from the class representatives, so the two of them together cleaned the jammed window rail. Then, out of nowhere, right after cleaning that thing, Fayumura simply pulled out a knife and started chasing poor Sanda, who could do nothing but dodge the repeated strikes attempted by the girl. The truth is, he once dreamed that someday a girl would run after him, but not like this. He meant it in a metaphorical way. Either way, the plain truth is that Sanda needs to react quickly. Otherwise, he's going to get chopped up. Despite his best efforts, after trying to react in every way, the boy ends up falling to the ground and is left at the end of his rope. However, he ends up being saved by the bell with the arrival of a classmate. With the girl's arrival, Fayumura and Sanda go back to acting normally, or at least for now. As the girl walks past, Fayumura hides the knife under the eraser she was holding, then announces that by the end of the day, she's going to kill Sanda. Anyway, time passes, and young Kazushide Sanda, at the height of his 14 years, may not have the maturity needed to understand the risk he's facing. After all, thinking about all this mess, he concludes that Fayumura is chasing him because she likes him. As he clearly remembers, the two of them became class representatives 8 months ago, and during all that time, Sanda had never seen this girl change her expression. But maybe being strange and grumpy is normal for any teenager in puberty. Thinking that way, surely what Fayumura meant when she said she would kill Sanda was that, in fact, she would open her heart to him before the day was over. Reaching that unusual conclusion, the brave boy considers today the best day of his life. Well, after telling this story to a close friend, the guy clipped his wings a bit, making it clear that Sanda's huge stupidity is still going to put him in danger. After all, if Fayumura is chasing him around with a knife, it's kind of obvious that nothing good is going on. The friend threatens to tell the teacher what's happening, but Sanda himself stops him from doing so, because he knows that Fayumura must only be acting like this because she doesn't know how to behave properly in public. If he rats out the chase to the teacher, that will definitely ruin the mood. About that, the friend reminds him that Fayumura's head must be fried after Ono's death, especially since it's only been a week, and the two of them were as inseparable as rice and beans. In that case, Sanda just sees it as one more reason to support Fayumura. So, seeing that he won't be able to convince the guy to stay away from her, the friend asks at least that he doesn't stay alone with her. Later, the two go down to gym class, and even though he's feeling cold, Sanda decides not to wear the school's red jacket to go for a run. His friend comments that it's normal for it to be cold this time of year after all. Today is December 25th, the day when, apparently, kids get presents from a guy called Santa Claus, some old man with a white beard and all. Sanda had no idea about this story and even thought it was a little weird. Finally, when asked why he doesn't wear the jacket, Sanda insists that the cold doesn't affect him. On the other hand, if there's one thing that makes the boy freeze, it's Fayumura's sudden presence on the track. When she suddenly shows up, the weirdo seems to bring snow with her, since it simply starts snowing the moment she appears. With that, Sanda looks like he's having a heart attack, kneeling on the ground with his hand on his chest, looking like he's really suffering. His friend takes off his own jacket to put it on him, but Sanda refuses the help. Still, his heart feels swollen, and it looks like the poor guy is going to drop dead with how fast it's beating. In the end, maybe this only means one thing. Sanda was born to be with Fayumura, to clear this poorly told story up. The two meet again in the classroom for a meeting, when no one else was present at the moment. Like a fool, the boy expected the girl to confess her feelings, but instead, she extends her hand and asks to borrow an eraser. When he grabs his pencil case to do what she asked, Fayumura asks why he's treating her so kindly, even after she chased him around with a knife. One theory, according to the girl, is that Sanda is only this nice because he's a descendant of Santa Claus. When those words are spoken, a heavy silence falls over the room, followed by unbearable tension. Fayumura argues that Sanda never wears the red running uniform, probably out of fear that his identity will be discovered. Sanda replies that he has no idea what she's talking about, but when he hands her the eraser, his heart starts to seize again. At that, Fayumura points out that almost all the conditions to break the curse have been fulfilled. Sanda is being kind to a child on December 25th, a snowy day, giving this child Fayumura herself what she asked for. By doing these two things, Sanda is now suffering the consequences, and it seems his hidden powers are about to awaken. As Fayumura explains, there are so many conditions that need to be met for it to actually happen that most people end up blaming their health and changing their routine. And speaking of that, there's just one condition left for the boy's curse to be broken: wearing something red. With that in mind, Fayumura chases Sanda down with a bright red running jacket. And no matter how many times the boy insisted that this whole Santa Claus thing was nothing but a dumb legend, he absolutely refused to let the girl get anywhere near him while she wore that outfit. In fact, he finally admits that he only went through all this because he likes Fayumura. His plan had been to come clean and tell her how he felt, but she managed to ruin everything with this insane chase. Fayumura disagrees, saying that, in truth, all of the boy's actions were driven by Santa's instincts. Even so, Sanda kept dodging her attacks with surprising ease, which forced Fayumura to honor the promise she had made earlier. With that, she pulls out a knife and drives it straight into her friend's chest, without an ounce of hesitation. Watching the sharp blade sink deep into his body, the victim begins to lose balance until he collapses hard onto the floor. Looking over the scene, Fayumura remarks on how terrifying it must feel to die all alone, with no one ever knowing. But then she adds something unexpected. Ono didn't die. The truth is, she vanished one day, and when nobody found her after 6 months, she was simply declared dead. Ever since she could remember, Ono always had her nose buried in books. The kind of girl who barely left the house. So Fayumura couldn't believe she had just disappeared like that. Strange, and even frightening as Fayumura might seem, Ono had always treated her with kindness. One day, Ono told a story about how Japan once had 4 seasons, and the landscape changed with each one. For example, Fayumura's skin was white as snow, and she was quiet by nature. Her family name even meant Winter Village, which suited her perfectly. But deep down, Ono believed Fayumura had many sides to her, as varied as the 4 seasons themselves. Whenever she was with her, Ono felt like she could experience them all, and because of that affection, she decided to give her dear friend a Christmas present last year. Overjoyed, Ono wished with all her heart that the two of them would spend Christmas together again the following year. Lost in those memories, Fayumura snaps back to reality and notices Sanda still sprawled across the floor, looking closer to death with each passing second. According to the killer, he'll die unless he turns into Santa right now, and she needs that unmatched power to find Ono. In truth, she never meant to kill him for real. She only wanted to help her best friend. She had promised that they would spend this Christmas together. Remembering Ono once more, Fayumura breaks down, lamenting deeply until Sanda mutters 2 words, "Merry Christmas." At that moment, a deafening pulse erupts around him, blasting everything backward. The knife slides out of his chest by itself, and then Sanda rises to his feet, letting out a bizarre Santa-like laugh, even with a fatal wound in his chest. Without delay, the boy undergoes a shocking transformation. He becomes a muslin-bound Santa Claus. Bitterly, he swears that the Sanda family curse was supposed to die with him. Still, he asks how Fayumura even knew how to break his curse. The girl replies that the bond between Santa Claus and a child who believes in him is unbreakable. But Sanda isn't buying it. What he really wants to know is her true identity. Fayumura, however, is convinced that Sanda is indeed Santa Claus, and all she can think about is how desperately she needs his help to rescue Ono, wherever she may be. Faced with her plea, maybe by instinct, all Santa wanted was to put a smile on the face of this suffering child. So, he swears he'll do everything in his power to help. And that's how a curse, white as snow, came to haunt Sanda's youth. Sadly, he began suffering side effects that usually only appear when we grow old. For instance, trouble seeing things up close. His voice grew rougher, wearier, and even his skin had aged. At that moment, Fayumura knocks on the bathroom door, asking how much longer he plans to stay in there. After all, he had destroyed the entire school, and the firefighters had already been called to evacuate the building. Yet despite the chaos, all Sanda cared about was that he had lost his cute, charming face, now trapped in the body of a giant old man at just 14 years old. Fayumura reassures him, saying he'll return to normal soon and that the only thing that matters is that he keeps his promise. But Santa flat out refuses, and the two begin to argue. To calm his nerves, Santa chews on a kid's gummy, something he always kept on hand for moments of extreme stress. According to him, it was like what adults did when they got angry, except they smoked. Suddenly, speaking of giant old men, Santa realizes he's turned back to his normal self right after eating the gummy. Finally, some good news in the middle of all this madness. The next day, the teacher explains that today's classes will be held in the science lab, since the classroom had been closed off after the explosion. Meanwhile, even though he had promised to help yesterday, Santa admits to Fayumura that he has no idea how. All he knows is that he's a descendant of Santa Claus, but he doesn't know what that actually means, or what his true potential might be. Fayumura, however, tells him she already has a plan. She planted a bomb in this very lab that will go off in an hour. It would be wise for Santa to use his powers to track it down. Before that, he could evacuate the class, or he could even try forcing her to reveal where it's hidden. Fayumura did this to test Santa's abilities, because her best friend's life was on the line. Speaking of which, the lives of 22 more people are on the line. And considering that this lunatic just stabbed him in the chest with a knife, Santa is convinced the whole bomb thing isn't a lie. So he tries to get the class's attention and explain what's going on, except no one takes him seriously. Out of options, he puts on his best pleading face and asks the teacher to let him pick up the thumbtacks he accidentally dropped on the floor. Of course, that was just an excuse to look for the bomb, but it doesn't take long for the boy to realize how dumb it is, trying to search for a bomb on the floor. Leaving that aside for now, Santa can't help but think how ridiculous it is that today's essay topic is what I wish for. Being a descendant of Santa Claus in a situation like this, the whole thing feels like a bad joke. Truth is, Santa wishes he could just be writing like a normal kid after all. Everyone has something they want. That's the whole point of the assignment. Instead, he ends up revealing that his true identity is nothing more than that of a useless old man, one who couldn't even keep a promise to a child. And then the thought hits him. What would Santa Claus do in a situation like this? That's when he grabs a red coat, having reached his conclusion. The moment he puts it on, he takes on the form of the jolly old man himself. In that guise, he grabs Fayumura and holds her hostage in front of the entire class, sending everyone into a panic as they scatter in terror, since the kidnapper demanded 10 billion yen in exchange for the girl's life. The teacher rushes the students to safety, even if she finds the criminal's demand absolutely idiotic. Still, it gives Santa the chance to isolate Fayumura in the room, surprised that her classmate had figured it out. The girl lifts her shirt and reveals the bomb strapped to her chest, re-emphasizing that she wasn't joking. Fayumura declares that she only wanted to test whether Santa Claus truly has the power to save children because she needs him to save Ono. To Santa, it's outrageous that this pest would endanger the entire class like this, but she brushes it off as nothing, insisting that nothing's actually happened yet. Then she asks how Santa managed to figure out the bomb was with her. He replies that he heard the scratching of pencils on every desk except hers, meaning Fayumura didn't know what to write for Christmas. Santa had only interrupted the class because he thought the assignment was too hard for her. On that note, Fayumura admits she couldn't write a single wish because she knows that the fear of losing someone is stronger than the joy of being with them. If that's the case, Santa tells her, then the joy of being reunited with Ono will be even greater, and he promises it will happen. But suddenly, both realize the bomb hasn't been disarmed. Before anyone can react, the entire lab goes up in an explosion. When the smoke clears, Fayumura realizes she's still alive because Santa had absorbed the blast completely, shielding her from harm. From that moment, she understands 3 things about Santa Claus. First, he transforms into the old man whenever he puts on something red. Second, he turns back into a child whenever he eats a mischief jellybean. And third, he's fire resistant as just proven beyond doubt. Meanwhile, as chaos reigns inside the lab, one of the students watches the scene unfold from outside. Unnoticed, he wears a strange smile. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.